Dads, 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 dads in recovery. So I just going to share with you this morning a reading from yesterday's daily reflection, and it was so it's so amazing. In the 12 step world, we don't talk a lot about men and even parents and children and this reading yesterday actually isn't just about dads in recovery, it's also about moms in recovery, but I just yeah, I'm going to read it to you, and then I want to share a little story. So if you'll be quick, hang in there. And if you have a dad, or if you are a dad, or you're married to a dad, and he's in recovery, or it's just it's many of us just don't have the bandwidth as we're kind of rebuilding. So let me just share this with you. 26th of September, yesterday, the alcoholic, it's titled Our Children. The alcoholic may find it hard to reestablish friendly relations with his children. In time, they will see that he is a new man. In their own way, they will let him know it. From that point on, progress will be rapid. Marvelous results often follow such a reunion. So they're talking about the success story of reunited families, and this, of course, was written when AA was the 12-step world was much smaller. But then it goes on to say, while on the road to recovery, I received a gift that could not be purchased. It was a card from my son in college saying, "Dad, you can't imagine how glad I am that everything is okay. Happy birthday. I love you." My son had told me that he loved me before. It had been during the previous Christmas holidays when he had said to me while crying, "Dad, I love you. Can't you see what you're doing to yourself?" I couldn't. Choked with emotion, I had cried. But this time, when I received my son's card, my tears were tears of joy, not desperation. And, really, that's a story of reunited, it has a happy ending. It's a beautiful story. And that is the picture we'd like to have, all of us, as dads in recovery. And I'm certainly blessed to have that in my life and with my kids. But last night, I was in a meeting, and this was read in that meeting last night. This because they read the daily reflections, and it was beautiful. There were men in the room who couldn't speak. The situations that I run into while I work with dads in recovery they're tragic and they're hard. They're really hard. Men often sober up, and emotionally, when we sober up, we're not very mature generally. We're not. I think it's understood that many of us stopped maturing somewhat when we started drinking. So lots of times we sober up and have the maturity of about a 14-year-old, and we're a dad. How the hell did that happen? And we don't have the bandwidth to deal with all the feelings that are happening. We've screwed up the relationship with the mom, with the mother of our children, who may be our ex now, because we've screwed up our relationship that bad. And she doesn't want us to see the kids because she's tired of them hurting and being hurt, and the disappointments that happen because we don't show up, because we're in addiction, and now we're sober. And we have a story in the book where we say, the farmer comes up out of the root cellar, and the hurricane cellar, the hurricane cellar, and he says, and the place is a mess, and been a hurricane go through, and he said, "Don't see the problem here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?" But it's just story in the book, and that because the wind stopped blowing, but still they had to rebuild, the whole property because of the tornado or the hurricane, and we're like that sometimes, as dads. We're like, well, I don't know what her problem is. I'm sober 3 months or 3 years, whatever it is, and it takes some time, fellas. It takes some time, but we get pissed off. You know, we don't like that she says no, and sometimes it's really she's defending her kids, you know, from from that hurt. And so I just want to share that these men I saw last night, there was so much pain in the room. There were dads that couldn't see their kids, and you know, and one of them actually was so clear that he got that he had screwed up again and again and again. And well, I want to share with you, if you're a dad and you're in recovery, that this can be rebuilt, right? It can be rebuilt. It is. It does get rebuilt, and you know, many of us have these fears because we're living in the fantasy of the future, and often the fantasy of the future is not a. It's we're kind of catastrophizing the future. We're thinking that this is going to go on forever. Well, I tell you what, if you stay sober and you do the work, and certainly feel free to talk to me about it. I've got some great ideas, I think, about how to rebuild those relationships. We don't talk a lot about it in the program. So stay sober and, you know, rebuild the connection. Sometimes you just, you know, a phone call to your child or so what if it has to go through mom? If she screens it, that's fine. You know, we're starting where we have to start, and to rebuild the loving connection and rebuild the trust, right? So that's it. Yeah, I was touched last night by these fellas and their pain, you know, and my message is that it can and will get better. So love you guys, and there's work to do, and I've got a program coming up, actually a course coming up in October. If you're a man that is struggling with, you know, rebuilding those relationships at the same time as you know, staying sober and rebuilding your finances and all of that stuff, it's tough. It can be really tough. So if you are, call me. We'll talk about it. Okay. Love you guys. And that's it. Cheers.